Hi everyone. My name is Marisha and I'm here with Marcus, my collaborator. We wanted to meet up and talk about the theme of the fight response and anger and emerging radiance and all the things around that together today. Hey Marcus.
Hi, Marisha. Hi to whoever listens to this.
I'm wondering if we should quickly share about our background because it feels like an important context, the body worker aspect of what we're doing and the fact that we're both body workers and kind of, yeah, really coming from that perspective when we approach this kind of work. Yeah, so I'm a body worker and actually I specialize a lot in pelvic work, pelvic and abdominal work. So these kind of themes are super important in my practice. They come up a lot. I don't know if you want to share anything about your.
Yeah, I have a multitude of backgrounds, including performing arts and also body worker in different modalities. Also, some of them which are more connected to trauma work. And I think we both have a very relational background as well, work in relational work in terms of informational work, terms of relation. And yeah, in that sense, we both have had this longing, I think, for co-creating something around a theme which is important to us, and then not the. I think both of us have this search for not this cliche expression of or the obvious association of what people have with certain emotional expressions.
Yeah, you mean in general, right?
In general,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. Yeah. So concretely, like in relation to this theme, what would be the cliche that you're talking
Yeah,
about?
well, if I talk, I mean, I'm very interested to anger myself in that sense
Yeah.
that I had a very Catholic upbringing, which I experienced quite suppressive. And definitely anger was an emotion which was very bad, negative. So it took me a while to shift it away and allowing anger, acknowledging anger as a life force or as an energy, as an emotion being present. And from there, my idea about anger was mostly about being destructive and being aggressive and being out of control. Um, yeah, actually, these three things: creating conflict, creating damage, hurting people. Um, yeah, there was no reason why anger should be should be something. And when people express anger, usually it was because they lost control and they would do all kind of things they would feel guilty afterwards about for what they had done to other people or themselves or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I learned through body work that actually it is not this, or it's not only this. It can has these kind of expressions, and usually this was the later learning is it usually gets this expression when it is suppressed and not welcomed in our life. And then the only way how it is people how it's then these energies start to move is when it's really not anymore being able to be suppressed, and then it pops out in this like uh, destructive ways, not helpful to anybody. And from there, in my bodywork exploration, I found out that there's many more value and many more other parts of the experience where when I started to allow anger, and when I working with clients, allowing anger, then suddenly it was like, oh, it is actually enriching and empowering me. Yeah, actually it's this. It's really, I felt like, oh, it actually gives me a sense of power, empowerment. And as a performer, on the other hand, I tapped into some things which uh, I was I got a lot of feedback of me being quite charismatic on stage and quite captivating.
Yeah.
And later I found out that actually what part of what happened is that I connected to my anger as a
Mm,
way of being more present and being more uh yeah, allowing myself to be present, and in a kind of not in an aggressive way at all. And it was only later that when that I started to combine my performance qualities, where I started to take space and really claiming my space. Only later I started to find out like, oh, actually that is when I own my anger energy in
mm,
this unapologetic way. And it doesn't feel as destructive or harmful at all. It just feels unapologetic. And once this thing, two things started to merge together, like, hey, there's this power of energy which demands something, and actually I can be with that energy, and it creates, yeah, clarity in me, and a sense of presence. Then I was like, oh wow, there's something behind it. And it took me a couple of years. I struggled with that for a long time because my logical mind couldn't match these two things. And it took me exploration in terms of an experiential level, where I started to trust that this actually is connected. And I'm grateful for some really uh, clients who are willing to do the journey with me, because in a way I could I could do this exploration on the sideline with them,
mm,
and therefore seeing that there's something more universal human in that, rather than just my subjective view on that. And from there I could develop also certain tools, how to show faster clients this where it might be, how it manifests in the body, this energy, and that it's actually not threatening to connect to this power, but empowering. Yeah.
mm.
Hmm. Yeah. So what's important about me about the theme, well, because this was somehow the question, is showing people that anger is not just screaming around and hitting things, and undoing the suppression means that I have to go all through these things. It might pop up at moments, but that's not actually allowing anger in my point of view. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, there's many things that you said that obviously, I mean, as you know, resonate with me because we've been working on this together for a while now.
Yeah.
I think it's like coming up, it's a year and a half at least, isn't it? We've been doing this sort of unpacking together of this theme. But the thing that really strikes me when you speak is this a piece around connection, because that kind of like outburst thing where we're kind of, already way beyond our, way beyond what we can handle, and then we kind of explode. This is often quite an out of connection expression. Or another one is to suppress it, is also kind of an out of connection thing. It's like we don't want to show it to anyone. But the thing I've been very excited by and stunned by is kind of like anger as a connective force. And I feel like we probably need to soon unpack the word anger, because we're using this word anger and then people are probably have different ideas of what that means, and it might be useful to share what we mean we probably have some also difference between us, but um, yeah, that it's actually also a connective force. This kind of
Mm.
one way of looking at the thing we're exploring is that it's a mobilization force. So it's a movement, but it's a movement towards kind of force. So, like if we think about the fight response, it's a mobilization towards threat, but it's also a mobilization towards what we want. And so, in terms of what's important about it, and you mentioned how we like to look beneath the lid on certain emotional ideas of what something is or what something's for or whether it's good or bad. It feels like one of the wisdom powers of anger or fight response energy is really about that capacity to mobilize um, towards. And actually, within that is connection. And that was completely new for me when I started to see that happening in my life. And that came out a lot in, yeah, obviously, I used to facilitate circling, but it also came out a lot in my sessions. Um, that there was something incredibly beautiful about being able to meet in these kind of forces with other
Mm.
people, and that it's actually not a cause to disconnect. It's often if it's both people are able to really be in that connection, which takes a few things from each person. Like people need to be able to have capacity for that in that moment, each of the people. It really yeah, it's quite profound what starts to happen,
Mm.
actually. Also energetically, and in terms of our self-actualization, it's pretty profound stuff. And I've seen it so often in sessions, actually. I'm often in this place of cheerleading that for people now, so I'm like, come on, like, come on, like we do a lot in our workshops. It's like, but it's not like, come on, lose your shit, it's like, come on, like you can be here with this, like this is welcome here. And I often say to people, like, I can take care of myself, so you just bring it, okay? Like you just bring it. And so there's something, and then to be able to meet people, I get goosebumps even thinking about it. It's like be able to meet people on that level, to meet people in that part of themselves is actually very, very intimate, um and beautiful. I can really connect with the beauty of
Mm.
it now, and what comes out in people, what starts to reveal or emerge, shall we say. Yeah, so that's in this moment what's important to me, but there's many things that are important to me about it. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, again, a lot of things also resonate in my work, and the one thing which I get like a clear like a recall is that repeatedly with clients we there comes this sense of connection in and intimacy, and also like a meeting as a equals. There's like a profound shift of meeting as real equals, not both are like in my taking sensing into my own power.
Mm.
There's also much more seeing that in the other person and meeting them as equals, and not like now I'm in this kind of uh, anger, anger energy, uh, or in this fight response. It doesn't mean that I automatically feel like stronger or bigger than the other. No, we're meeting much more as equals when it happens in connection.
Yeah, it reminds me of the first time we did this workshop, and then the overarching expression that people had around that was relief. Like, oh, I know that uh, you're going to take your space if I take my space. Oh, that
Mm,
feels so good. That feels such a relief, and it feels so grounding and relaxing. And that was quite a paradigm shift for a lot of people in the space.
yeah.
Also for me to hear that from so many people, I was like, wow, that's very key, because a lot of us are also pulling that back, pulling that in, because we're afraid of what that might mean or what might be interpreted by that. Um,
Yeah, I remember now again in even the festival when you did this little taster
yeah,
that ag- again two participants told me, "Oh, I can see that I can take space without taking space away from other people."
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
like actually like my mind, it's still not logical. And on a level of experience, this makes so much more sense. Like, hey, I can own my space and I don't take away anybody's else space. And we both can take our spaces. Um, yeah, I want to come back also to what you say, the anger, when I talk about anger and the association. For me, it's much more a kind of I like to talk much more in rather than about anger. I like to talk about it like anger energy.
Mm,
And
yeah.
for me, there's a deep interconnectiveness with what I would call pelvic energy and deep interconnectiveness with, yeah, still some have resistance to this word, but I didn't find a better word yet, but like something like life force. And all of these things being somehow different aspects, facets of this life force energy, and therefore like us being alive and connecting with life and aliveness. Um,
Yeah.
so usually I don't. When we talk in this context with anger, I talk more often with about anger energy
Yeah.
as like as a energy. Like the accent is on the energy and not on the anger.
The anger. Yeah, and that feels like an important thing as well, because yeah, maybe also to clarify, because when people think anger workshop or something, um, I guess there can be an association with like certain kinds of expressions only, or maybe something that's quite cathartic, or that involves kind of sort of screaming out your rage into the void or something. I don't know. Well, I've certainly done a lot of that, and it was useful at me at one stage. So it's not about making that wrong at all, but it has clarified for me over the years that I actually feel like being able to wield the energies that you're talking about, that we're talking about, it actually takes a lot of capacity, because it's not about throwing out. So it's not about just expression, out, out,
Yeah, and
out.
it's also not about the resolution, I think,
No, not at all,
of
because
the
it's
thing, but much
that's
more
a
like,
bit of a myth, I think, as well. The idea
yeah,
that if you scream it out, it will be gone
yeah.
doesn't seem to be backed by neuroscience, actually. Um, it seems to be as well that we tend to recreate our emotions. Actually, we can tend to get into habitual patterns around emoting. So yeah, anyway, but that's like a different conversation. Um, but it does feel like capacity building around this energy takes something around lower body capacities, lower body work capacity, and also working with the flexor system intelligently.
Hmm, hmm,
Because it also seems the more, when people actually feel they have access to that mobilization response on a physical level, like to the big muscles, in the legs and the arms, there often seems to be, and it isn't always an instant thing. Might take some time to work it, but like there often seems to be more capacity there. So like the more I feel connected to that strength and the fact that I can hold this energy and it's not going to destroy me or anyone else, the more I have choice about how I'm going to wield that energy, what I'm going to direct it towards, when I'm going to express it, how I'm going to express it.
Can you say a bit more about what you said about the flexor system and the big muscles? Because I wonder if people connect to that as well or understand what you mean by that.
Which aspect shall I say more
Well,
about?
you shared shortly there, like the fight response and the flexor system. What do you mean by that?
So, I mean, like, the muscles that flex. So, we're talking like your hip flexors, your bicep, your fists, like these kind of muscles that become active when we feel a sort of threat response and we go into more like a fight type response towards that. So, it's a couple of things. Like, sometimes we have incomplete responses in those systems. And it's interesting when we do that work, people often experience that, as heat or something like this. So it's almost like a
Mm,
charge that's like wanting to move. Um, but then also when we feel we have a lot of good contact with those muscles, like we can rely on them, like we have them when we need them, um, they can help us to kind of stay in that part of the response and not go into a collapse. Because when we feel disconnected from those areas, we can sometimes go more into a collapse, if our system is less comfortable with those energies. So working with those systems actually can help people to stay a bit more in the fire of it and build capacity there.
Yeah, and that resonates with my experience as well. That like when you teach people, show people that there's this, hey, there's these structures, and actually, yeah, also what you said, completing this movement for a couple of times of
Yeah,
squeezing something,
pushing.
pushing something away, and doing that slowly and consciously from a place of awareness, and building trust that
Yeah,
that this is okay to happen, even in connection with somebody else. I'm pushing away somebody, not because I I want to disconnect, but from a place of connection. I can push you and be connected. Yeah, that sounds, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This capacity building part of like, and changing also in a way I believe in that, like embody belief.
yeah. Can you say more about that?
Well, it feels like opening a Pandora's box, like the simple question. I try to concise it, but the last years are more and more playing with this awareness around assumptions and starting to own more, like, oh, I have assumption around this. Oh, I have assumption around this. And some of these assumptions are based on, I can track and trace really, oh yeah, I had this and this experience, and therefore something in me wants to do things like, oh, this is going to happen again in this and these circumstances. And it's helpful at times. I mean, like we are pattern recognizing machines, or our mind is pattern recognizing, and for a certain extent also our body.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a lot of beliefs and imprints and assumptions around which we are not aware of where they came from or what they come from. So we don't identify them even as assumptions, but we believe them as being the reality. And I think having the experience of certain things like this embodied flexor system, and slowly giving time and things like, hey, or like what you say, these participants, hey, I actually have not experienced that me claiming space doesn't mean that the other person feels like something is taken away. Oh, that feels like a real relief, because until now I had this belief and nobody ever gave me the opportunity, or life didn't give me the chance to verify this assumption that me taking more space means not necessarily that the other person is something taken away, but actually we both meet stronger.
Yeah, and I do feel curious about this word belief, because something I also notice, sometimes we don't even know what beliefs we're holding in our system. Like, or it just feels like it's often places where we feel like we don't have many options. So, and we don't even often know that there's a belief there or a sort of conditioned response. Um, and yeah, so that feels significant because it's a lot about, do we even know that there's another option? Like, oh, I can't get angry now, or I can't take up space right now, or whatever it is. Um, yeah, I was going to say something else, but forgot it.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it resonates in that sense that I through my own past, and I don't want to go too much in that right now because it diverts from the theme. But there's definitely this thing where I think the world is like this. Yeah,
exactly.
like this,
Yeah,
like, oh, reality is like this. And
exactly.
I even
Yeah.
not even questioning that it could be different, because it feels so real to me and any other option seems not real. And I encountered the last, whatever, probably 20 years, steps over and over again in my relationships with women, in my relationship with men, in my relationship with teachers, in my relationship with clients, that so many things felt like a given, which slowly turned out they are not actually they're not a given. That's a belief, an imprint, and
Yeah.
there is another option. And I'm not always able to access that option because some of them are too scary or they feel like too far away or too shameful sometimes or too no, you can't do that. However, I start to recognize like, oh yeah, it feels like this. I can see at least that yes, there would be this other option. Right now, I don't have yet the capacities to access these other options, and it will take some training and giving myself the permission slowly to access these other options.
The other thing about belief actually that I wanted to mention was I do notice like a gap sometimes between, so for example, people might be familiar with a concept, like, so the concept that if I take space, I won't take space from anyone else or something like this, or that that's a possibility. But it's a concept, so it's kind of like somewhere in the, I don't know, let's say it's here. It might be
Yeah,
in
the level
like,
of abstract. Yeah, abstract.
right, abstract. And then, but that's a really different thing to going through that process, noticing that's what's happening, anchoring in the here and now, feeling the body in that moment, and having that personalized experience of that happening for me,
Yeah,
and having that realization like, oh, I didn't think that was possible, but it is. And
yeah,
that's quite a key thing, I feel like, with this kind of work or with embodied work, is it's like we can have all, I mean, many of us are full of concepts. In fact, we're pretty concept full, I would say, as a humanity, like these days, and we can gorge on them. Like I sometimes like to junk food concepts myself, um, for social media, but that's actually not the same thing as having a real bottom up experience of my own worldview shifting in real time in connection with others. I feel like there's a gap between those two things that's quite significant. Um, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it resonates to me in that sense as well as it what I discovered in our workshops also, it keeps puzzling me because I love my mind. I love concept building and model building and whatever kind of things that certain practices shifts my state and shifts my experience,
Mm.
and I don't understand why. And
How is that for you?
at times it's frustrating, and at times I can just acknowledge that it shifted. Not even for me, not having yet find whatever reasonable explanation for that. It's part of my learning process that there's a lot of things which we can't explain, but therefore it's not less real. It's hanging on to of my like trusting more my experience in that level and not needing to be verified by necessarily something. And the beauty is that later you find out that some concepts actually do meet do meet the experience pretty well and pretty good. But me having known the concepts beforehand didn't help me to find the experience. So I like what you said about the bottom up stuff. It's like, oh, certain things we have to try and start to feel into the experience and see what it is. And from there, the concepts might become more accessible.
Yeah, and there's also, I mean, maybe it's a little bit provocative, but like I do sometimes feel like sometimes it's a way that we avoid going there is by having lots of concepts or telling ourselves that we know how it is or how we know how it should be. And then we're sort of avoiding being with what actually is,
Yeah,
being like, okay, so I know that's how it should be or could be, but like, how is it actually?
yeah.
And I feel like that's quite an important thing that we're exploring as well in our workshops, because I think as well, like about, think about our demos, our famous demos, and this thing about trying. trying out that process of going into different strategies, let's say. And so we we might all have an idea about what's a good strategy. And then in like a laboratory setting, like a workshop, it's like, oh, I know I'm supposed to be like empowered right now. But if we're actually with what is, if we're actually with the truth of our experience in the moment, it can be so, so rich to to track our own experience. And I think within that is like a tracking of our intelligence, because all these strategies have a very deep intelligence. They're
Yes.
not saying like this is the right way to do it. It's like it's actually not about that. It's always just about having more options
Yeah.
and more range potentially. But something I think that's really beautiful about this work is having the opportunity to really be deeply in touch with our own system and our own system's inherent intelligence and capacities. And we can often realize by doing that, like, oh, this made a lot of sense back then, or this is good for these things and it's not so good for these things. And I want to
Yeah. I
have
like
more of
that.
some other things right now. So I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
try something else and see how that is. But it's never about making that instinctive response or even conditioned response wrong, because all of those things are usually smart as hell for the circumstances that people are coming from.
Yeah, I like what you said. It's like it used to be the smart intelligence thing in one moment in your life, and it probably might be another moment in your life. And it's not the perfect solution for every situation or something.
Yeah, I guess it's also about choice, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah, yeah,
and it feels completely different if you're choosing it versus you don't have any other options. Like
yeah,
that feels really different in my experience.
yeah.
When I do my most habitual strategy, which is probably withdrawal actually. But if I
Mm,
do that because I'm like, I'm going to do that now, that's what I
mm.
want to do. That's the right thing right now. That feels completely different to,
Like,
just doing that impulsively, not knowing that I have another option.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm aware of time.
Oh, yeah. So,
Is there something you would like to point towards what you feel like it's really important to say? You mentioned also, no, no, I don't. I want to point to one thing is like the when we were busy with this theme, we agreed that we don't want to call it an anger workshop, and we came up with something which felt more encompassing to the
yes.
theme, and we had a back and forth around it, and then we came to something which at first there was like a bit more resistance, but now we get a lot of like it fits better and better, and this is this name of emerging radiance. And I wonder what made you insist on emerging radiance.
I was just
Luckily,
mobilizing.
huh?
I was just mobilizing towards the threat, which was you.
Yeah. No, but there was something in that, like really trusting. You really insisted in because there was something I trust in you that this is actually really important and fitting.
Yeah, I
And,
think it came from a few, I don't know, the clarity around the name just dropped in at one moment, but that it did, yeah, it came from a few things. Like this piece about emergingness or emerging part of emerging radiance feels really key because we are working a lot on the spectrum of energies of expansion, which is something that also has come through more and more as we've done this. And that's also where it touches into aspects of like creativity. So it's like when we start to expand, then we want to create an anger or, anger energy, pelvic energy, fight response energy. It has within it this I want to create, I want to change things, I want to move things around, I want to make things.
yeah, yeah.
So there's that. And then the radiance piece feels connected to that, but it feels like where that wisdom force connects us to something that's often very uniquely us.
Mm, mm.
Essential qualities that can start to, yeah, be seen more. So that was the radiance piece, and that connects also with the fire aspect because we're working on this more fiery spectrum. So it came really from there. And because in the work of Almas, there's this whole thing about red, red, the red Latifa, the red essence, which is anger, but it is also, yeah, he talks about the strength that that brings and the kind of certainty. So it felt connected to my explorations in that work from many years ago as well.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where it came from. And I do feel like I remember that first demo we did of me and you in the first weekend, and then it really dropped in because I was like, oh, this is it, this place of a very clear verticality and groundedness that allowed
Yeah.
something to emerge. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it also connects like a lot into what I call this uh, allowing to be seen and also not to apologize for taking, for being that, being empowered or whatever, not relativating it to other people but being like, no, this is me. This
Yeah.
is me. And I'm not gonna hide it or whatever. It's also, it's not, it's for me, it's a big difference between, it's not like there's a fear in me. Sometimes people misunderstand it as like showing off your power. It's not about this. It's just like I'm stopping excusing for my uniqueness or
Yeah, I noticed you say earlier when you were talking about performance and you said unapologetic a few times, and it really struck me. And when you said it, I really felt this sense of like actually the naturalness and the relaxation because performing it, it's yeah, because you're not talking about posturing, you're not talking about
no,
puffing up, you're talking about almost like, and the work we're doing is very in and down. So it's like it's more relaxing, it's more becoming more natural, more loose with
absolutely.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
more free with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the what you say. I wasn't aware about it before. It's like I'm stopping the effort of holding back in a way. And when this effort drops, I'm just start radiating without an effort
Yeah. Yeah.
and expanding. I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, I noticed some like word with I don't want to people like having the idea of over expansion or something. It's important. It's not about this, but there's something like, oh yeah, something is allowed to go into this space.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's all we have time for. This was nice. It
It's
was
really
fun to
nice.
talk.
Yeah,
First time we record ourselves also. That's quite a milestone.
curious.
Yeah, me too. Me too. If you have anything you want to share with us after this, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for
Yeah,
listening.
thank you. Thank you for listening. And we are open to all kinds of feedbacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we become really angry
That's
hearing
right.
your feedback.
And we get to meet and connect even more deeply, so it's a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah, nice one.
All right. Thank you, Marcus. Bye.
Thank you, Marisha.